All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit today about publishing. I'm going to get back to a video that kind of goes into more detail with, I'm going to show you a report. So I apologize, I've had to kind of black out a lot of stuff like account numbers and IP numbers and things like that because I don't want to share that stuff publicly. But I will actually show you earnings. This is a summary of royalty earnings from publishing. So the reason I like to show the numbers, I know a lot of people maybe think that's kind of douchey to do that. And it's by no means trying to brag. I mean, this isn't a lot of money. And by no means is it like, why would you do this? Because, well, you'll see when I show you the report, I'll put it up on the screen. You'll see that it's taxed. So that kind of goes back to, I mean, which means, you know, the government already knows about it. So there's nothing I'm hiding here. And it's such a small amount of money that it's not something that I would feel uncomfortable sharing with people. But I want you to see that there is money to be made in the publishing side. So a lot of folks reach out to me and ask, you know, I put a post up recently saying, you know, I'd like to publish other artists as well, other composers. If you're not published already, I'd like to start expanding my catalog beyond just my own. So this is why I show this level of detail and this kind of transparency, because you know, I mean, I'm not some famous person at this point, you know, and may never be in that sense. So you can't just say, oh, Garrett Conklin, yeah, we know him. Everything he says is validated by the fact that he's been, you know, globally or, you know, internationally successful, whatever. I don't have that, you know. I mean, there's folks that watch these videos that have way bigger profiles than I do, have more streams, but still may not know how to do this or even know this exists, or you're in a country where this isn't something that's really discussed. Or it's just a different process. So it's important, I think, to show you the actual numbers so you can really see what I'm talking about. And again, it's not to be boasting or of my own success, because to me, this is kind of a joke. But in any event, I'm going to share this. So I'm going to put up on the screen now. This is a royalty statement from BMI, so Broadcast Music Incorporated. So BMI is one of the publishing houses that you affiliate yourself with either as a composer, a publisher, or both, like I am. So Bifocal Publishing and Garrett Michael Conklin are both affiliates of BMI. One is a writer, one is a publishing company. So again, I've mentioned in other videos that, you know, being a publishing company affords you a lot of opportunities to sign contracts that you would not be afforded as just a composer. But the best place for everyone to start is to become a composer with either BMI or ASCAP. I can't really endorse either one. I have used BMI my entire career, but, you know, either one does. They both do basically the same thing, in my opinion. It's really just a matter of looking at the fine details of what each offers and what works best for you and your situation. But let's just get right into this. So this is just a short thing, but I want to show you that there is money out there, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of publishing because it's extremely complex and it's difficult to understand and more difficult to explain. So that's really not the point here. The point here is, if you don't publish your music, you don't make and earn all of the money that you're owed. It's really that simple. So just to be, I guess, to try to differentiate this. So publishing has nothing to do with streaming directly. It's an indirect relationship. So this is not money that I'm getting from, let's say, let's just use Spotify as an example, directly from Spotify. This is money that I'm earning based off of subsidiary aspects of Spotify and streaming sites and plays like from Pandora or from SoundCloud, for example, which a lot of people think you don't make any money on SoundCloud, but you do through publishing. They don't pay you directly for streams, but BMI does. You get a percentage of the stream. There's a multiplier, just like there is with every other streaming site, and you get that percentage based on how many streams you have. So what I'm going to show you, and I guess I haven't put it up yet, but what I'm going to show you is the royalty statement. And keep in mind that this reflects in excess of 1 million streams. Okay, so I don't want to put this out there that, oh my God, look at all this money that you could make, you know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can. You know, there's huge amounts of money to be made on this side of it too. But number one, this is in addition to direct payments you would get from your distributor from, let's say, Spotify or Pandora or iTunes or Google Play, Google Music, Apple Music. This is something else. This is the publishing side. This is why you want to do these things. So if we look at the statement from the top, there's 2 pages. I'm just going to only include the front page because all the other stuff just goes line by line by line, thousands and thousands of lines of all the streams and where they came from and the breakdown and the percentages. And it's just nonsensical. But the impact of this is to see how much money you can make off of one thing and how much you actually give away. This money, if it's not collected in publishing, no one gets it. It's not collected. So why would you leave any money on the table? Is my point. It's just ludicrous. Additionally, and this may piss off a lot of people, but this is why record labels take all your publishing. Because let's say you're a label and you have 50 artists. And collectively, those 50 artists make 1 million streams, but individually they don't. Right? So it's a collective 1 million. The label still gets paid on the publishing for 1 million streams. And you don't, because you don't own your publishing. This is why it's so important to own the publishing side of your music as an independent. When you get into bigger labels and stuff, they take it. And this is why, because it amasses huge amounts of income that you don't even realize is out there, perhaps. But this is actual proof, and this is real. I have the actual check. I haven't cashed the checks or deposited them yet, but I have all the checks, and this is just one side of it. So what I'm showing you is the Bifocal Publishing side. So this is the publisher side of the publishing. There's also a composer side of the publishing, which is close to the same amount. So that's why I'm not showing both. They're relatively the same thing. So if we look at this, pre-tax, $605.72. That's no joke. That's a couple bucks for, it's a variety of songs. Again, as I mentioned, it's a huge list of stuff. So to back up just for a second, to kind of, I guess, defend the label in this sense, when you're a small label, it's going to be an enormous amount of work from an administrative perspective to try to go through and figure out, of all the artists you have, who gets what piece of the publishing. Because when these statements get sent out, it's quarterly. You can see it right on there. Fourth quarter, 2018, 164th accounting period. That's just what it works as. Both domestic and internationally. It comes out, in a quarterly chunk, and it's, 6 months out? So it's pretty far behind. Even, a lot of people complain about the streaming sites being a month or 2 behind, or 2 months behind, 3 months behind. This is 6 months behind. So, and it's a full quarter of earnings. So it's not a per month, it's 3 months, right? That's why it's so big. So don't look at this and go, wow, that's 1 month. No, that's 3 months. And that happened, whatever happened from October through December of, 2018, fourth quarter. So again, this is another reinforcement that this is a business. This thing is working off of a traditional business model of quarterly earnings statements. That's what all publicly traded companies do. So again, if you're still on the fence about music being a job, I don't know what else to tell you. They're even taking taxes out of this in advance, right? They're doing that for me. They have a backup withholding tax line that they took out. So when I report this, or when they report it, it all matches up and it's already been accounted for somewhere. Whereas when you get your streaming revenue, you have to account for that yourself. No taxes are taken out of that. And that's where you can kind of get into gray water, but let's not get off topic. So, $605.72 for 3 months worth of whatever I did in Q4 of 2018. That's real money. This is just a quick little video to show you, there's real money to be earned out there in publishing. And you really do have to take this kind of seriously if you want to, I put a video up not too long ago, yesterday or today or something, that talks about passive income. This is another example that wasn't used in that video, but this is passive income, right? Because I'm not doing anything right now to have earned that money. That's passive. It's just coming in. It's like royalties. They just come on in. But what you can't forget about is all the work that you have to do to arrive at a point where you start to earn passive income. It just doesn't happen. Publishing doesn't just happen. You have to physically administer all of this. And if you think doing, uploading to a distributor is a pain in the ass, this is, a factor of 10. They have it's like a 7-page submission process for every song. It's somewhat templated. In my case, I had a shit ton of songs. I think I have like 360, 70 something crazy number of songs. When I uploaded these in bulk, you could do it through a CDS file or CSV file, excuse me, it just bulk upload. But for the most part, you have to do this one song at a time, just like you do on a distributor, only there's 7 pages to this. It goes over release name, has it been released? How has it been used? Who are the writers? Who are the publishers? What's the percent? It's a big process. But the point is, you really are losing money if you don't do this. And as we're smaller artists, $600, $700, $1,000, that's meaningful to me. And I'm sure it might be to you as well. Again, to reinforce this is, something looking at roughly a million tally, a million aggregate of a number. So, these numbers you can imagine are going to be pretty tiny if you're making 5, 10, 15,000 streams in a quarter. It's not going to be that much money. But the point is, you want to have all this stuff in place so that when you do arrive at that point, and I'm a perfect example of that. I've been doing this for 20 years, publishing. So everything that I do gets published in one way or another, unless it's with another artist. And then there has to be an agreement worked out where, publishing gets split up the way it should. Just like you do splits for the regular release. But it's still all collected by a single entity, which is Bifocal Publishing. And then it's my responsibility to do it. I mean, I don't have anything with anyone that I've done any collaborations with, because again, to the label's credit, it's pretty difficult to do these things. And I'm a label, but I'm just a guy. I'm one person in my label, so I really don't have time to sit around and look at who made 0.8 of a cent on this song, and then try to figure out how to pay everybody. It becomes cost prohibitive at that point. So for me to sit there and iron all that out and pay people properly will cost me more money in my own time than it would be worth to do it. So there's just no point in doing it at that point. But for yourself, it's very important to do this because there's no one else to pay but you. So why not do that? So the takeaway here is, you don't have to do this, but you should look into it. Take a look at what's out there from a publishing perspective, from ASCAP, BMI. I think there's a CSAC, and there's a few things in Europe to take a look at. But if you're not familiar with them, just Google it, and I'm sure there's plenty of results that'll come up. But take a look at this. I mean, this is, something you want to consider. Maybe it's not something that will give you financial well-being today, but maybe in a year or two when you're really kicking things off or something is kicked into high gear, you'll be very happy that you did this because the residuals on this can be significant. I mean, I'm looking at something from the end of last year. That's a nice little surprise to get, and again, this is only half of it. So, it's only, close to $900 between myself as a composer and myself as a publisher. So that's kind of a neat scenario. So in your case, you may not have the publishing side as a publisher, but in effect, everything would go to you as a writer. So you don't have to put down a publisher. It would just all come to you. So I have this split up, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do everything as just a composer, and then all rights go right to you. Whereas I have this administered through my publishing company that ultimately pays me. But remember to do this. This check is made out to Bifocal Publishing, not Garrett Conklin. So you have to actually be a business to cash a check that's made out to a business. You can't just walk into the bank with this and pay me. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You have to have an actual business certificate or become an LLC or a partnership or whatever type of business structure makes sense for you. But that's also very simple to do. You just go into your local municipality and set that up. It's not anything difficult. So yeah, that's really all I had to say on this. I know a lot of people have been reaching out with regard to the publishing piece. Actually, that's not true. I have one more thing I wanted to add to this because I said I would clarify that from a lot of the folks that have been reaching in. Publishing for me, so I tried to put a post out saying, yeah, I want to publish people, but what I really meant was I want to publish people that have a catalog like I do that are not published. Because again, back to the original point, for me to take a couple of songs and publish them, there's just no benefit for anyone in that. There's only a benefit for you doing that yourself, not for a company. So keep that in mind when you're considering like, oh, I want to be published, I want to license. A lot of these places, at least that I've dealt with, other than MTV, and the only reason they did what they did was because of what I'm going to explain. Licensing happens via catalog, right? So when you solicit for licensed content or sync revenue and things like that, they're looking for one song, but they're not looking to look at one song from you, right? So they want your catalog. So they want as many songs as they can pick through to find what they're looking for from a composer or from a publisher. So all of the stuff and all the deals that I've signed have to do with the back catalog, the publishing catalog that I've amassed over the years. And then they'll go through and say, okay, well, when I was on MTV for, those few years, they picked 3 or 4 or 5, however many songs it was, and that's what they used. But the whole catalog was submitted. I didn't pick out songs for them. I gave them every song and said, okay, here, well, I didn't, the label did. So this label I worked with did that, and they were distributing this stuff as well. But they're the one that solicited or facilitated the whole deal. And in the end, I had to submit everything from the catalog because that was what was with the original publishing house that was dealing with all this distribution. So keep that in mind when you're considering that. You may just not be ready to do that. It's just not for everyone, at every stage. You have to have amassed a pretty decent catalog. Now, what that number is, I don't know, but it's not like one album. It's a lot. Like I said, I have close to 400 songs published at this point in my catalog. People look through that, sort through that all the time. That's what it's about. It's not about having a couple. Of course, if you have a couple songs that have hundreds of millions of streams, that's different. But I don't have that, and I'm just going to assume the majority of the people that are listening to this don't have that either. Because if you do, you don't have any interest in what I'm saying. There's people doing this for you. Anyway, back on track. The point being, this is about volume, just like everything else, it seems. But, you can't really, I'm not telling you not to try to publish music. Of course, that's what I'm trying to explain to you here. But you need to start doing it. And then you look at some of the opportunities that are available to you once you have something to deliver. It's kind of like trying to market a product to Walmart that you don't have a million of. They're not going to buy it. Even if it's a great product, they have thousands of stores. They need tens of millions of products to send to their stores to make a real go at selling your product. Right? So you got to start small, and then as you get bigger, you'll have the opportunity to do different things with your music and your publishing. But please, just go out there, take a look at this stuff, read about it, sign up for it. Like I said, being very transparent, it's not going to do anything for you today, right? If you got a few thousand streams here and there, this is going to do, you're not going to get a check. It's just, you're not gonna, right? It's going to take a while. Like, keep going back to the fact that I've said I've been doing this for 20, 30 years or something now. This is a long time of amassing this. But, if you're 20 something years old or 30 something years old, you could be looking at this stuff in 5 or 10 years. And that's not a bad scenario to be looking at, that all this back revenue comes from. You hear about a lot of these artists and professionals that are out there that, they get these big, how do they keep getting paid for syndication? And all this is how it works for music. This is how you get paid for things forever. If my stuff comes down from streaming, I still get paid for this stuff every time it's played somewhere. If it gets picked up on a TV, if it's on a game, if it's on the radio, if it's on Pandora that has its own different database of material that's not related to your distributor at all. Directly, it's an indirect pull, kind of a hook. But, this is something you want to do for your future and planning. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's great. This is exactly for you. Go research music publishing. Try not to get too deep into the specifics of it because you won't understand it most likely unless you have a pretty high intellect. This is really convoluted legal type stuff intentionally, so it's very confusing to understand, and you just sign it away. But remember, you're signing this away every time you sign a deal with a label, and they're getting the money. And for them, it's a big deal. Let's say it's only $15, but if they have 100 artists, that's more than $15, right? That's worth it for them. But is it worth it for you? I don't know. Maybe. I've given publishing away. I've done it too. So depends on what the deal is. Like I said, when I did things with MTV, they took half the publishing. But that's a really good takeaway from this. A company the size of MTV, that's no joke, right? And this was a while back. So when they were, it was still TV shows, but I guess they played a little music on there, more so than they do today. But nonetheless, they were huge. MTV is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're a big, giant entity, right? And I was, this was like 2004-ish, maybe this happened. This was something that I'm a nobody still, and was then. I just happened to have a good deal with a company at that time that solicited this whole thing for me on my behalf. But even at that stage, MTV only took 50% of the publishing. So when a label approaches you and they say they're taking 100% of the publishing, I don't know, man. That's not a deal that I would sign today. I mean, that's completely subjective, and that's, up to what you want to do. But if you're looking at numbers right now on the screen while you're listening to me, this is why I don't do that. Because not only does the streaming revenue count, but the publishing revenue counts too. So if you're not thinking about that when you're deciding whether or not to sign with somebody, you're missing out on money. If I look in my Spotify, in my distributor page right now, this reflects a smaller percentage of what you get from there, but it's still a significant amount of money. So imagine what I still have coming, right? This was 6 months ago. So I'm 2 quarters behind right now. So we're talking thousands of dollars at this point that you would be giving to a label, or that I would be giving to a label. And I'm not saying there's no value in that, but it's so hard to watch people, they I got a record deal. It's like, man, it's like, I don't know if any of you work for a union, you got to weigh the benefits of that when you take that job, because you're paying for it. So in the same respect, when you give out your publishing and sign it off to a label, you're paying them. I mean, I guess that's a whole nother video to talk about how labels and deals actually work, what they're doing and what some of the wording means. So I'll try to shut up about that now. I mean, what am I already 20 minutes into this? Yeah. I mean, if you watch my videos, they're long-winded. There's just no way around it. When I get on a topic, it just, bleh. But labels provide a service to a lot of people that can't do a lot of these things or don't have any interest in it. And, to my own credit, I would love to sign with a label that could take me to another place. But if I'm going to be honest and own my shit, which is what I preach to everybody else, what am I really bringing to a big label? I mean, I think I'm handsome, but I'm no Justin Bieber. I'm not that young. I mean, my music is good, but doesn't mean that it's like the next big thing, because that whole piece to me is subjective. So it's hard to understand what I'm bringing to that table to say, hey man, front me $100,000 and, I'll give you the publishing to all this, knowing full well that they're going to promote that stuff and push it to the point where it reaches hundreds of millions of plays everywhere. And I'm going to lose out on that whole back end side of the money because I have no bargaining chips. I'm not, just because I've been doing this for 20 years doesn't mean I have any weight. Other than that weight, you know what I'm saying? I'm not some known artist that carries along this piece of the, this strength that in brand. I'm a guy in my bedroom just like you are. So you have to be realistic about these things. When you go into a job interview, if you've never done the job before, how likely are you going to make the top end salary for your pay grade? You're completely unlikely. It's just not going to happen. You don't bring anything to the table. In fact, you're rightful in feeling as if you're very thankful for the opportunity because it's pretty lucky. If you take this out of music, I know I'm an engineer. You start off as an engineer, you're fortunate to get that job. You're not owed that job, and you're not coming to the table like I am with 20 years of real world experience plus an education. Of course a guy like me is going to make more money than you. It's just a fact. I know more. So the same is true with music. If I'm coming to the table with, I think I have 2.5 million streams altogether so far. Big whoop. That's nothing. If I'm approaching a label that's got artists that have 500-600 million streams on their songs, what am I? They don't give a crap about me. I bring nothing to the table. So you got to kind of look at that perspective too when you're reviewing. I got to get a deal. You could do a lot of this stuff on your own. And if you don't get picked up by a label or a playlist or whatever, I mean, you got to hold yourself accountable for that stuff. Maybe you're just not there yet. I sat here and bitched for many a day. Why am I not on more playlists? Why is Spotify not picking anything up? Well, I mean, realistically, if you look at my profile, the only song that's got massive amounts of plays is the one they put on their playlist. I've probably got I don't know, maybe 250,000 streams outside of just that one song that's got almost 2 million at this point. I mean, I don't count the chill hop thing because that doesn't count. That's not me. That was them. But there's a really good example. If you can get into that, and they don't have any interest in me. So I don't know if it's me, my attitude, my approach, things that I post, they just don't like the music, whatever the case is, we're not a match in that respect. But that would definitely be a label I would entertain working with because, they're pretty big. They're definitely able to do more than I am for myself. They take a piece of it and they take the publishing piece too, to some degree. I mean, at least the song that I worked on, they took the whole thing. So I don't know if that changes as you work, more with them, or if you become I don't even think I'm a real artist there. I mean, I was a feature on somebody else's track playing the horn. So, I mean, I had to sign a contract, but, I don't know. They don't really, they don't really care for me. So whatever, that's, I guess, another video we could talk about why having a better attitude than I do perhaps will improve your opportunities down the road. But, you might think I'm smiling, but if anyone has dealt with me, I don't know how to say this. I'm kind of an asshole. I mean, that's just the way it is. In some aspects, maybe I know more than I should about a lot of this stuff, and that just puts people off. Or I don't know if this is true of all people from New York, but I'm pretty aggressive and pushy, and I have very little tolerance for stupidity and lack of understanding, especially at that level. I mean, now technically you work for me, not the other way around. So if I give you my product, I have a pretty high expectation of what you're going to do with it because you're taking my money. Whether it's directly or indirectly, you're taking money from me, right? So I have a high expectation that you're going to do something pretty damn good with it, at least better than what I could have done, so that I'm making at least the amount of money that I would have made had I done it myself based on the splits that I've negotiated in whatever these deals are. And, the reality is a lot of times it doesn't happen. So I'm not making friends real fast in that respect. But I do this on my own, and I try to share and give back, probably because I know what an ass I am and how difficult I am to work with. So this is my way of kind of making amends for that and saying, well, let me share some really specific, really transparent information with people. And so far it's met with pretty good feedback. So that's it for today. I appreciate everyone's, anyone watching this, and keep the comments coming. I really enjoy interacting with folks, in real time. So thanks. Have a good one.